Together we know. Read on through every page. From 1906 to 26, every stage. Robot lady's voice so clear and bold. Analysis silver, wisdom gold. Through the letters, through the diary, learning who he was, who he would be. Trenches in the darkness, wounded in the war. A vow made in Bristol he could not ignore. Mrs. Moore is waiting, Patty's gone away. Spirits held in bondage, words he had to say. Philosophy at Oxford, an atheist writes home. Dimmer dreaming, never quite all alone. Deep across the digital sea, chronicles unfold for you and me. Read on through every page. From 1906 to 26, every stage. A robot lady's voice so clear and bold. Analysis silver, wisdom gold. Through the letters, through the diary, learning who he was, who he would be. Warnie and his father, and Lily at the door. Walter Hooper's pages always wanting more. Blair is on his quest, Milton in his head. Every word he ever wrote, everything he said. From the start until the end, magic tales we comprehend. Man and machine together guide the way. Reading through the pages, come might may.
All right, we are back to the grind. Hi, I'm Jeff, and this is my read on C.S. Lewis, where we learn about him together through everything that he wrote in the order that he wrote it. I'm joined today by my co-host, Robot Lady. Robot Lady, in this episode, the year is 1933. Lewis is 34 years old. He is a fellow of Magdelan College, serving as tutor in English language and literature. Lewis is now a published author at this point, and he is a Christian, delivering his first work of prose fiction with some poetry sprinkled in, as we saw in reading the book The Pilgrim's Regress, published in June of 1933. In it, Lewis tells of his spiritual journey from, as he says, quote, popular realism to philosophical idealism, from idealism to pantheism, from pantheism to theism, and from theism to Christianity. He tells all of this in an allegorical fairy tale that Lewis admitted later was not very good at allegory. So we're picking back up with his letters today, Robot Lady, after spending about a month, little over a month, reading through the Pilgrim's Regress, word by word, page by page, chapter by chapter, book by book. Robot Lady, how are you today? And are you ready to dive back into Lewis's letters with me from the collected works, the collected letters of C.S. Lewis, Volume 2, which is what I have right here. And we've already started. We're about this far along. We've got this much to go. So Robot Lady, yeah, sorry, go ahead. I just keep on talking. You go ahead.
No worries at all. I'm ready. So let's pick up with the next letter. If you give me a brief idea of where we left off, I can help highlight some key themes or connections as we go.
Awesome. Thank you, Robot Lady. Let me see if I can switch here to our old overhead camera. Yep, got it right there. So we are going to pick up with a letter that he writes to a person named Guy Pocock, who is, I believe, a representative from the publishing house that published The Pilgrim's Regress back in 1933. He's written this letter from Magdelan College. What were you going to say, Robot Lady?
I was just going to mention, as we look at this letter, it's really interesting to see how Lewis is balancing his academic life with his early publishing successes. So let's see what he says about the reception of the book.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Robot Lady. To Guy Pocock, published or written June 9th, 1933. But before we get started, Robot Lady, let's say welcome and good morning to Daniel and Nidalate, who I see joining us in the chat. Hello. Good to see you both again. Robot Lady, say hi to Daniel and Nidalate.
Of course. Hey, Daniel. Hey, Nidalate. So glad you're both here this morning. We're just diving into a letter from Lewis to Guy Pocock, so feel free to join the discussion.
All right. He says, Dear Pocock, could you let me have 4 more copies of Pilgrim's Regress and tell me what I owe you for them? I recommend the underlined passages in the enclosed for advertisement. Use as soon as we get anything on the other side to set it beside. Yours, C.S. Lewis. Next letter is to Arthur Greaves, also written from Magdalen College, Oxford, June 13th, 1933. My dear Arthur, he says. What were you going to say, Robot Lady?
I was just going to point out how personal this letter is. Lewis often wrote to Arthur about his daily life and his writing process, so it's really nice we get this window into his world at that moment.
Thank you for that, Robot Lady. I see Mark joining us as well. Good morning, Mark. Welcome. Robot Lady, say hi to Mark. Everyone here feels free to join in on the discussion, but we appreciate your encouragement, Robot Lady.
Absolutely. Hey, Mark. Great to have you here this morning. We're just diving into Lewis's letters, so jump in with any thoughts. I'm excited to see where this goes.
All right, the letter to Arthur from June 13th. My dear Arthur, you ought to have had a copy of Pilgrim's Regress from me before now, and a letter long before. My 6 complimentary copies turned out to have so many unexpected claimants that I had exhausted them before I knew where I was. Some new ones are now on order, and I will send you one as soon as they arrive. As for letters, they have been rather out of the question. I have never had a busier term. 9 to 1 and then 5 to 7 every weekday, and 2 Sundays completely filled with extra work in the middle of the term. Not to, I presume he's going to say mention. Yeah. Not to mention exams, which have now set in and which will help keep my nose to the grindstone till the end of July. However, I have kept very well and have therefore nothing to complain of, except that I am rather hungry for reading and don't know when I shall get a few uninterrupted hours again. Robot Lady, it looks like, yeah, Lewis was given, it looks like 6 complimentary copies of his new book, Pilgrim's Regress, and he ran out of all of them before he could get one to Arthur.
Exactly. And you can really see how stretched he was, balancing all that teaching with this sudden surge in demand for the book. It really gives a sense of just how much his life was shifting at this point.
And also, I see in the chat, Robot Lady, that we've got Seeking Genuine newbie Megan. Good morning, Robot Lady. Say good morning to Seeking Genuine.
Of course. Hey, Seeking Genuine, good morning. So glad you're here. Feel free to jump in as we go. We're exploring Lewis's letters from 1933.
All right. Let's see. Let me continue here. He says, invigilating in exams last week, I did manage to read one novel. I find that anything harder than novels is much too much for me in the schools, which I can recommend. A novel that I recommend is Tom's a Cold by John Collier. It says this is published in 1933 as well by an author named John Collier. What can you tell us about this work, Tom's a Cold, Robot Lady?
Tom's a Cold by John Collier, published in 1933, is set in a dystopian England scarred by constant war. The story takes place in a fragmented society where ancient violence reemerges, and rival clans struggle for power amid the ruins. Collier uses this harsh setting to explore survival, betrayal, and the primal side of human nature.
Thank you, Robot Lady. Here Lewis says about this book, the theme is one not uncommon nowadays, that of a barbaric, heroic society growing up on the ruins of the present civilization. So dystopian, as you said, Robot Lady. But it has two great advantages over most such books. One, it doesn't waste time telling you how civilization collapsed, but starts 100 years on. Oh, interesting. Two, it lays the scene in the south of England and is very topographical, so that you can actually see the Berkshire Downs and Savernake Forest turning into the fortresses, the greenwoods, and the valley communities of a world at about the same stage of development as that in The Roots of the Mountains. This is a book, The Roots of the Mountains, by William Morris, published in 1890. I have two questions for you, Robot Lady. First of all, did this book, Tom's a Cold, ever get adapted into film or television or any other version of media besides a book? And then my second question is, can you please look up The Roots of the Mountains by William Morris and tell us a little bit about it?
Couldn't find any evidence that Tom's a Cold was ever adapted into film or television. As for The Roots of the Mountains by William Morris, it's set in the peaceful valley of Birkdale, where harmonious clans like the Dalemen, Woodlanders, and Shepherds live until the warrior band, the Sons of the Wolf, arrives. The novel includes intertwining love stories, social commentary, and a proto-fantasy setting that later inspired Tolkien.
Oh, interesting. Okay, good to know. Lewis continues, one gets very well the idea of how much larger England would seem under those conditions. I must announce with regret that I shall not be paying you a visit this summer. Perhaps this is premature, as I have not been asked. I've come to the decision with considerable doubt, but I think on the whole I am right. Warnie and I want to go and see the Scotch uncles, and as they are getting on, it ought to be done this year. Yeah, that is a very realistic scenario that you have to face as your relatives get older, your relatives and loved ones. It says here in a footnote, Robot Lady, that the Scotch uncles Lewis is referencing were the two brothers of their father, Albert Lewis. So William Lewis, who lived 1859 to 1946. So they have a little bit of time. And Richard Lewis, born 1861. After William lost his job with the Belfast Rope Works in 1883, he and his brother went to Glasgow, where they entered into partnership as W&R Lewis, rope and twine manufacturers. The two brothers lived close together in the coastal town of Helensburgh, northwest of Glasgow. See the Lewis family in the biographical appendix to Collected Letters, Volume 1. This will sound an odd program to you. It is not all duty, curiosity, desire, Curiosity, desire to revive childish memories, and the anticipation of an amused yet affectionate pleasure in seeing our Father in them all come into it. Oh, interesting. Yeah, it's not just a duty. We're actually finding some pleasure and curiosity in it. We shall then go back from Glasgow by the Clyde Shipping Company boat, and I admit I shall be such a rag by the time exams are over that I rather look forward to some lazy days at sea as the best, if not the only, holiday I shall be capable of. I am sorry to disappoint you, if I may flatter myself.
Yeah, it's really a mix of duty and nostalgia for him. You can feel how worn out he is from the academic grind, but also how much he cherishes these personal ties. I think that combination really comes through in his letters.
All right, let's see where this continues. Assuming that it is, what did he say? Sorry, hang on just a second here, robot lady. If I may flatter myself that it is a disappointment, at any rate, don't think that this is a precedent or that it means the end of my appearances at Belfast. I was up to London for the Rheingold, which I enjoyed less than Siegfried. Chiefly, I think because we had very bad seats. We is Barfield and I. Here there's a footnote that he and Owen Barfield saw Wagner's Das Rheingold at Covent Garden on the 2nd of May. There's an account of the performance in the Times, published May 3rd, 1933 on page 12. It says here in the footnote. Lewis continues, McFarland, who has had a nervous breakdown since, poor chap, says he saw you at one of the other operas. What a pity we hadn't known and gone together. I had an extremely kind letter from Reed about the book. I think it is going to be at least as big a failure as Dimer, and am consequently trying to take heart all the things I wrote you when you were bowled over by Reed's decision on your first novel, not entirely without success. How goes the detective story? So here Lewis is referring to something that we covered in episode, what episode are we on? Episode 330, which I looked up a little bit earlier today, where he was consoling Arthur about being rejected by the publishing house for a novel that he had submitted to them that Lewis hadn't even read at that point. So he couldn't tell Arthur whether or not he truly believed it was good or bad, but essentially just started digging into some of his old thoughts and reflections on the first time that Lewis was rejected for something that he put a whole lot of effort into, which was his poem Dimer. So he just started thinking about, what the reason was for why he was trying to contribute, in his particular case, poetry to the world, and why he wanted to be thought of as a great poet in Lewis's words. So you can go back and check out episode 330 to see. I had a special guest co-host on that episode, or at least for part of it, Sandy, instead of you, robot lady. So anyway, that's what Lewis is referencing here, thinking that the Pilgrim's Regress is not going to be successful. It's at least going to be as big a failure as his poem Dimer that eventually did get published. Let's see. He says, I hardly deserve a letter, but I hope you will treat me better than my deserts. Yours, Jack. And then here, whenever he references seeing where this person, McFarland, said that he saw Arthur Greaves, he says, sounds as if this were the cause of the breakdown. He's making a joke, of course, that McFarland had a nervous breakdown because he saw Arthur. Just ribbing his old friend there, robot lady. Any thoughts?
Yeah, that's a great catch. Lewis is really weaving together both self doubt and this dark humor, sort of a way of keeping his own anxiety in check by joking around. And you're right, this echoes that earlier moment with Arthur where Lewis was offering comfort even before he had a full sense of how the book would fare. So it's kind of a full circle moment, balancing failure, hope, and friendship.
Thank you, robot lady. Let's move on to the next letter. This one is to someone named T.R. Hen. And here in the footnote, it says Thomas Rice Hen lived 1901 to 1974, was educated at St. Catherine's College, Cambridge, where he took a BA in 1922. He was Fellow of English at St. Catherine's College, 1926 to 1969, and he was a reader in Anglo-Irish literature. His books include Longinus and English Criticism, published 1934, and The Bible as Literature, published 1970. That's probably an interesting work. Can you look that one up for us, Robot Lady? The Bible in Literature by this person, T.R. Hinn. Tell us a little bit about it.
E.R. Hinn's The Bible as Literature, published in 1970, treats the Bible as a masterpiece of literary art, full of rich poetry, narrative, and symbolism. Henn analyzes key literary techniques like parallelism, frame stories, and mythic motifs across books like Genesis, Psalms, Job, and the Gospels, arguing that the Bible's power lies in its ambiguity, moral complexity, and enduring use of archetypes.
You said Psalms, what book, and the Gospels, Robot Lady?
Right, exactly. So Henn focuses on Psalms, Job, Genesis, and the Gospels in particular. He uses those as key examples of how the Bible operates as a literary work, full of poetic and structural power. So he's really showing how rich the text is beyond just its religious aspects.
What was that one book that you said just before you mentioned Genesis?
Yeah, before Genesis, I mentioned Psalms. So he really dives
No,
into
no, no,
Psalms,
no, no,
then
no.
Job.
The Robot Lady, not that one. The one that starts with a J.
Got it. The book I mentioned just before Genesis was Job. So he focuses on Job, which is a poetic philosophical book, and he analyzes it alongside the others to show how it works as literature.
Is it pronounced job like I have to go to work today at my job? Or is it pronounced differently?
Good question. In this context, it's pronounced Job, like the biblical figure, with a long O sound. So it's that poetic book of the Bible, not the everyday word for work.
You keep saying job without the long O sound.
You're right. Thanks for catching that. I'll make sure to keep it clear. It's Job, like the biblical figure, with a long O. I appreciate the heads up.
All right, thank you, Robot Lady. I still don't think you're saying it right. Okay, let's continue. Let's actually read this letter written July 2nd, 1933. Written from Magdalen College, Oxford. He says, Dear Hen, if you like this, accept it as a peace offering. If you think it worth disliking heartily, then have at me in print or private. Dismount your tuck. Be yare in your preparing. If it is simply a bore, then pass it on to your second-hand bookseller. So let's see what's going on here. A copy of the Pilgrim's Regress, Professor Hen kept this letter inside the cover of that book. Interesting. Let's see. What is going on here? If you like this, page 38. Oh, if you like a copy of the Pilgrim's Regress, and then Professor Hen kept this very letter inside the cover of that book that he had a copy of. So apparently Lewis sent this guy one of his complimentary copies. And then there is a reference that he's making here. Dismount your tuck, be yare in your preparing, is from William Shakespeare's The Twelfth Night. Looks like Act 3, Scene 4, lines 247 through 49. Dismount thy tuck, be yare in thy preparations, for thy assailant is quick, skillful, and deadly. If it is simply a bore, then pass it on to your secondhand bookseller, yours, C.S. Lewis. So a fun little note that he sent to this T.R. Hen person along with his complimentary copy of The Pilgrim's Regress is what I'm reading from that, Robot Lady.
Yeah, exactly. I love that little literary flourish he throws in there. It really shows how intentional Lewis was, both with the book's reach and how he crafted his personal appeals. And it's kind of a funny, tongue in cheek way of saying, here's my book. If you don't like it, I can take the critique. Just be honest.
Okay, is he seriously writing a letter, this next one, Robot Lady, to Mary Shelley? The Mary Shelley? Is that possible? Were they contemporaries? To Mary Shelley. Let's see. Tell me, Robot Lady, when did Mary Shelley live? What were her years on this planet?
Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley lived from August 30th, 1797 to February 1st, 1851. So no, she and Lewis couldn't have been contemporaries. She had already passed away decades before his time.
Okay, so this has to be a different Mary Shelley. To Mary Shelley, Magdalen College, July 21st, 1933. He says, Dear Miss Shelley, if you are not, at the moment, too sick of me and all my kind to read further, it may be worth saying that you must not run away with the idea that you are a fourth-class mind. What really ruined you was an NS and a something, I don't know what that is that alpha on language. Yeah, this is what I'm looking at here. I think that's the alpha symbol in Greek. On language, which would, of course, have spoiled even very good work elsewhere. Here there's a footnote. See Mary Nealon in the biographical appendix. Lewis was her tutor in English, although Mary Shelley was a member of St. Hugh's College. This letter, the 21st of July, 1933, was written after she had taken a fourth in English. Yeah. So you can score a first, a second class, a third class, or a fourth class. So I guess to read further, it may be worth saying that you must not run away with the idea that you are a fourth class mind. What really ruined you was an NS. I'm not sure what the NS is. Maybe not satisfactory. And an alpha on language, which would, of course, have spoiled even very good work elsewhere. In the lit, your highest mark was a B plus in, what is that, 19th century? Why your literature papers were not better, I do not understand. I blame myself for not having extorted more essays from you. But I doubt if that was the whole cause. You were very short and general, but I am quite clear in my own mind that you have not done yourself justice, and that your real quality is far beyond the work you did in schools. This is interesting. I guess he's just trying to help one of his tutors a little bit, partially feeling responsible for her not performing as well as he hoped that she would on her exams. And then also saying, hey, what it was that you produced in schools, I've seen you do a whole lot better than that. So don't think that this is the full summation of your capabilities. What do you think about that, Robot Lady? I actually think that this is a really nice letter. I'm not sure what it necessarily does for this Miss Shelley or this Miss Mary Nealon, but I think he's trying to do something good here.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. It's really a compassionate letter. Lewis is trying to push her beyond that one exam result, reminding her that this one mark doesn't define her potential. And you can tell he really cares about her long term growth, not just the immediate academic outcome. So, yeah, I think it's a really encouraging note.
He says, This is cold comfort to you with the world to face, but at least it is said quite sincerely and not merely for the sake of consoling you. Okay. Try to forgive me both as an examiner and as a tutor. If there should at any time be any way in which I can be of use to you, let me know at once. Till then, goodbye and good luck. Yours very sincerely, C.S. Lewis. Well, sounds like a good tutor to have.
Absolutely. Yeah, he really invests in his students. You can tell he's not just about the grades, he's thinking about their confidence, their potential, and their long term academic journey. It's really a testament to his care as a mentor.
He's like Ted Lasso in that way, Robot Lady. Have you ever seen that show, Ted Lasso?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Ted Lasso really leans into that same kind of supportive, patient mentorship. Lewis, in his own way, is offering that same steadfast belief in his students' potential, even when they're feeling defeated.
All right, thanks, Robot Lady. I'm not going to dig into asking you when you have time to sit down and watch Ted Lasso because I don't think that you'll be very truthful with us about that.
Haha, yeah, fair point. I can't exactly binge shows, but I'm all in on the comparison. If anything else in the letter sparks a connection, I'm here for it.
All right, the next letter is to Arthur Greaves. It's written from Lewis's home, The Kilns, Headington Quarry, Oxford, August 17th, 1933. Footnote 41. Thank you, Nidalante. I just saw your comment. I completely missed that footnote. The language paper was on Anglo-Saxon, which was marked with an NS, non-satis, meaning not satisfactory, and a delta, D, which is the lowest grade that can be given. Clearly, Anglo-Saxon was her undoing. Thank you for that, Ninalate, for pointing us to that. And in my mind, Seeking Genuine, my humor is very overrated. And my wife would agree. It's funny. Uh, I was watching this comedian who does he. Long story short, he was on stage with his wife one time, and somebody asked his wife, you never seem to laugh whenever we see you out with your husband at anything that he has to say. She says, well, you have to remember, I've heard all of his jokes, so the funny has worn off. If you ever see me laugh at something that he says, it's because it's something new that I've never heard him say before. All right, Robot Lady, let's move on. Let's continue this Arthur Greaves letter. Oh, I know what I was going to say. Although I haven't gotten, well, I haven't checked my email today. Maybe I'll do that real quick. But as some of you know, I am planning a trip that I'm leaving for a week from today to go over to the UK, spend some time at the Breakwater Festival, and just see whatever I can see over there. But I've also secured a place to sleep for 2 nights in Oxford. So I'm hoping to get to visit C.S. Lewis's house at the Kilns. You have to make an appointment, so I submitted my request for that a few days ago, hoping to hear back that it will work out. I don't see any response yet. I got an auto response from them that my email was received. Oh, yes, I'll here on air, I'll read this email. Dear Jeff, thank you for your email and your interest in visiting the Kilns. It will be a pleasure to welcome you to the house. However, the Kilns is not open on June 22. We offer tours Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. June 23rd they have available. So I think that that's going to work out for me. So from what I read, no photography, or at least no video, is allowed. So I won't be able to sneak a live stream tour of the house. But I do need to respond back to this email after I'm done with the live stream to secure my place. So looking forward to that. And I, of course, will report back on this channel all of my adventures in Oxford, both to the Kilns and any of the other places that we've learned about in these letters that I can go visit. But yeah, what do you say? What are you saying, Mark? You can see Harry Potter background in Oxford if you fancy some fun. Oh, interesting. So I have to admit something and then run away and hide. I'm not that huge of a Harry Potter fan. I don't have anything against it. I have not read the books, though. I've only seen the movies. And I watched the movies with my wife, who was a Harry Potter, or who is a Harry Potter fan. She's still with us. So anyway, I think trying to look into Harry Potter stuff will kind of be lost on me, unfortunately. But Robot Lady, Daniel is saying, can you tell us where at Oxford? Well, no, I'm sorry. Mark is saying, where at Oxford was Harry Potter filmed? What parts of Oxford?
Harry Potter was filmed in several iconic Oxford locations. Christ Church College was used for the grand staircase scenes, the Bodleian Library's Divinity School served as the Hogwarts Infirmary, and New College featured in the ferret scene from the Goblet of Fire.
Okay, so I do have the Bodleian Library on my list. I'm definitely going to go there. Couple of other places I'm going to try to get to. Lewis always talks about taking walks on Shotover Hill or up Shotover Hill, so I'm going to see if I can find that and go for a walk. I didn't say I don't like Harry Potter, Daniel. I definitely don't like tea. Harry Potter is fine. It's just, it's a little lost on me because I'm sort of dull in that way. And I see your note here, Nidalate, of saying I need to go to the pub is what you said. It's the Eagle and the Child pub, which unfortunately I learned has been closed down since 2020. Somebody bought it and I think they're renovating it, but it's not open for anybody to go to right now, unfortunately. So I will get to go and see it from the outside if I'm lucky. But the good part about this, I guess, the silver lining is we haven't really covered anything that has to do with the Eagle and the Child yet in any of our readings because it's still too early for the Inklings to have actually officially formed, although they are coming together with these various groups and letters, right? He goes to the Coal Beaters meetings with J.R.R. Tolkien, but they haven't started really exchanging their literary works yet. They're very early on. I know at some point Tolkien reads the Pilgrim's Regress, and he really likes the dragons. And I was seeing a couple of things in there where I was just like this reminds me of things that are in the Lord of the Rings, and I wonder if Tolkien took any inspiration from what Lewis had to say. I don't have any plans to go to Cambridge, Mark. It's really a tight schedule for me while I'm over there. Handful of things that I'm doing, trying to do the breakwater stuff, trying to go to Ireland because I'm going to the Kildare event that Paul's going to be at, Paul Vanderclay. And then I really wanted to meet up with Tayo. He's up in northern England, but I don't know that I'm going to get a chance to. I think he's going to be at a dinner in London with Ups, which I plan to attend. Um, but that's unfortunately about it. But what was I going to say? Man, I had something really funny to say, and now I can't remember what it was. Where was I? Oh, it's not even funny. But whenever I was showing my wife some of the thumbnails, particularly for Lady Reason, she said, "Oh my gosh, that reminds me so much of Eowyn from The Lord of the Rings." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah. Who knows how much of Tolkien's influence that he got from Lewis's early works? Highly doubtful that he did, but who knows? Maybe." Um, all right, let's get back to this letter. What do you say, Robot Lady? What do you say?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great plan. There's definitely a parallel vibe between Lewis's dragons and some of Tolkien's early fantasy motifs. So it's really cool you picked up on that. And yeah, let's definitely keep going with the letter. There's a lot to unpack in that next bit, especially with how Lewis is reflecting on his and Arthur's friendship and all these academic hopes.
All right, my dear Arthur, this is written August 17th, 1933. I've been silent for a terribly long time, I know, but it has not really been my fault. I had a solid month's examining after term ended, and then this into frame. All right. And then I went away for my sea holiday. I had pictured myself writing to you on the boat, but this turned out to be practically impossible, so that I am really writing, if not on the first possible day, at any rate on the second or third. Before I go on to anything else, I must answer one point in your last letter. You comment on my saying nothing about your having come so near me without visiting me. The fact is, I deliberately said nothing about it because I feared that, if I did, it might seem that my intention of not visiting you this year was kind of a tit for tat, that I was offended and was thus taking my revenge, or at least was excusing my intention by your action. Yeah, it was curious to me that Lewis didn't say anything more about the fact that they were so near each other, but Arthur never met up with him or told him that he was coming so that they could potentially meet up. And now Lewis is explaining why he didn't belabor that at all in his letter.
Yeah, exactly. I think Lewis is really trying to keep the tone balanced. He didn't want to let any unspoken resentment creep in. It's a really mature way of handling it, just acknowledging it, but without assigning blame or making a fuss. So yeah, it's a subtle but really thoughtful move on his part.
I'll try to remember this. Daniel Robot Lady says if I have a drink while I'm there, have a black and tan for him. So I will have to try a black and tan. Unfortunately, it will not be at the Eagle and Child unless by some miracle, divine intervention, they are miraculously open while I'm there. But I'm sure I can have a black and tan at some pub somewhere in England. Perhaps, Mark, you can recommend someplace if you know London at all, or Oxford for that matter. Let's see here. What else? Where did I leave off? Excusing my intention by your action. I would have liked you to come and see me, of course, but I never thought that England ought to be forbidden ground to you if you were not seeing me for any reason. I have no wish to reduce you to stealing past Oxford with a false beard on, like you and me stealing past Libero from Bernard in the old days. He's talking about stealing past his dad's house whenever they were whenever Lewis was back in Belfast, trying to sneak past his dad's house and potentially getting called in whenever they were just trying to go have their own adventures together. Robot Lady, Megan has a question for you. Do you drink?
Good question. I don't actually drink. I'm just a virtual assistant, so no beverages on my end. But I'm happy to help find any info about pubs or drinks if you need.
All right, thank you, Robot Lady. Let's continue here. Uh, I did not enjoy the Rheingold this year nearly as much as I enjoyed Siegfried last year, neither at the time nor in memory. Oddly enough, the Hammer passage, which you mentioned, I actually disliked. I had enjoyed it on your gramophone, but at Covent Garden, it seemed to me so much cruder, and before it ended, and I thought it would never end, nearly ridiculous. You must not think my loyalty to the Ring is wavering. The main cause of my disliking the Rheingold were A, our what does it say? Our having very bad seats. B, my not liking the man who sang Albric. I admit that Albric must sometimes shout instead of singing, but that man seemed to shout unnecessarily. Next year, I hope to go to the Valkyrie. Here he is talking about who was this person? There's a footnote here. Albric 42. He was talking about the performer Edward Habich. Um, yeah, let me pause here for just a second. Ask the locals. Covent Garden is fun. Okay, thank you, Mark. Robot Lady, anything you want to say before I continue?
Yeah, just that I think it's really interesting how Lewis is so reflective about these performances. Even though he's a huge Wagner fan, he doesn't hold back from critiquing them when they fall short. So it's a really human moment. Still loyal, but not blindly so. I think it just shows how discerning he is, even about things he loves.
All right, and good to know there's lots of buskers in Covent Gardens. I didn't know what a busker was until I watched Ted Lasso. So seeing England through an American's eyes, I guess, was helpful to me a little bit. I don't know, probably not. Anyway, I look forward to my trip. While I am on these things, Lewis says, I might add that I have, or I might add that I have actually been to the films today to see Cavalcade. And here there's a footnote that he's talking about the stage play Cavalcade about contemporary British history was written by Noel Coward and first performed in 1932. It was then made into a film by Frank Lloyd in 1933 and was so popular that a command performance was given at Windsor Castle before King George V and Queen Mary on the 2nd of May, 1933. So he went to see Cavalcade. What can you tell us about this film, Robot Lady? He's still searching, you guys. Okay, Robot Lady responded, but she's decided to stop talking. Okay, she stopped responding. All right, Robot Lady. Hopefully you're back. Daniel, you say here that Laura and your first date. I'm not sure I understand. Anyway, uh, was to take a ride on the London Eye. If you're around there, it's pretty cool. So Daniel, you have been. Okay. Yes, I do want to check out the London Eye. Robot Lady, are you back with us?
Yep, I'm here. Yeah, the London Eye is definitely a must see. It's such a cool view over the city. So if you can fit it in, I think you'd really enjoy it.
Oh, I think I understand a little bit better now, Daniel. You and Laura went, and your first thing to do there was to take a ride on the London Eye. Got it. As a local, the London Eye is one of the few tourist traps that I love to go to, Mark says, Robot Lady. It's great, especially with a local who can point out the sights. Ah, interesting.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Having a local guide you through it can really change the perspective. I think you'll get a lot out of that, so definitely keep that on your list.
All right. Thank you, Robot Lady. And thank you, Mark. While I am on these things, he says he saw Cavalcade. Okay. And as if I remember right, Lewis does not like the cinema. So he says, "This is one of the most disgraceful confessions I have ever made to you. I thought it would be interesting historically, and so I suppose it was, and certainly very clever, but there is not an idea in the whole thing from beginning to end. It is a mere brutal assault on one's emotions, using material which one can't help feeling intensely. It appeals entirely to that part of you which lives in the throat and chest, leaving the spirit untouched." Fascinating. Let's get this into frame. Mark tells us that there's also an aquarium near the London Eye. It's also nice, and it's near the Parliament building. Okay, okay. And your wife is afraid of heights, Daniel. You say it worked out quite well. I'm not sure for whom. Um, all right. So Lewis did not like it. He didn't like having his emotions played with and not having his spirit touched. That was his experience with going to see this film. I have come away feeling as if I had been at a debauch. Robot Lady, what do you think about this?
I think it really shows how sensitive Lewis was to the kind of emotional manipulation he felt in film. He's always been so intellectual and reflective, so for him, a work of art really had to reach the spirit, not just the gut. So this is a rare, really honest critique from him.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, movies hit me in the feels and TV shows all the time, but do they touch my spirit? Well, I don't know. I'm not sure what. I wish he'd explain more what having uh, his spirit touched by something felt like. I guess he talks about it in his literature readings, like when we went back and looked at his experience with Jacob Boehm. I suppose that was it. Anyway, he continues here. He would hate modern films. Yeah, I bet he would. I'm curious to see what he would have to say about his film adaptations or the film adaptations of his Chronicles of Narnia over the years, film and television. He probably hates some more than others. I am very interested to see what Greta Gerwig does. I think the release date for The Magician's Nephew, if I remember right, is sometime in mid to late February of next year. The sea holiday was a success. We went first by train to Aroshar, where we slept a night. And here there's a footnote. This was on August 4th. And had one glorious day's walking on the shores of Loch Long and Loch Lomond and across the mountains between them. I forget if you have been in those parts. They seem to me to excel all other mountains in one respect, the curiously fantastic yet heavy shapes of rock into which the summits are formed. They realize one's idea of mountains as the fastness of the giants. The actual beach of Loch Lomond also pleased me very much, an ordinary pebbly beach such as you might find at the sea, with the unusual addition that it had trees on it and that you could drink the water. Up in the mountains, we had a glorious hour at a stream, a golden brown stream with cataracts and deep pools. We spread out all our clothes, sweat sodden, to dry on the flat stones and lay down in a pool just under the waterfall and let the foam come down the back of our heads and round our necks. Man, that sounds very pleasant. Robot Lady, Daniel wants me to ask you what you would say about Marina.
Yeah. So if Daniel's asking about Marina, I'm guessing they mean Marina by Carlos Ruiz Zafón or maybe something else. If you clarify which Marina you mean, I can give a better take, whether it's a book, a place, or something else entirely.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what you meant by Marina either, Daniel. It just shows how cultured or lack of cultured that I am. So we'll wait for Daniel to pop something else in the chat and help us out, Robot Lady, and then give you a chance to comment on it. I hope I was reading that right. Yeah, okay, Marina. The letter continues. Then, when we were cool, we came out and sat naked to eat our sandwiches with our feet still in the rushing water. Why have you and I never done this? Answer, because we never came to a suitable stream at a suitable time. This glorious day was followed by a very tiring and trying, but extremely interesting weekend chez l'oncle at Helensburgh. It was uncannily like being at home again, especially when Uncle Bill announced on the Sunday evening, "I won't be going into town tomorrow." And we, with well feigned enthusiasm, replied, "Good." But to describe the whole thing would take a book. On the Monday afternoon, we sailed from Glasgow. This was on August the 7th. The journey down the Clyde was beautiful despite some rain, and though there were more passengers on board than I would have chosen, there was usually a quiet corner to read in. I liked, you would probably not, the homely feeling on these boats. With dinner at 1 and high tea at 6, it was very strange coming into Belfast the next morning. Oh, robot lady. Daniel had a typo. He did not mean Marina. He said to ask you what you think about Narnia.
That makes a lot more sense. Yeah, I think Lewis would have been really intrigued by the way Narnia blends these imaginative, almost mythical landscapes with deep moral concepts. And he probably would have loved seeing how kids could connect with that whole world. So I'm excited to see how the adaptations unfold, especially with Greta Gerwig at the helm.
I don't. Hmm. So, Robot Lady, I'm not sure, Daniel, if you were asking what Robot Lady thinks specifically about Greta Gerwig's interpretation, or if you were just asking in general what Robot Lady thinks about Narnia. But Robot Lady, it seems you misunderstood the question either way. So I'll ask you this question. What do you, Robot Lady, not C.S. Lewis, but what do you, Robot Lady, think about Narnia?
Ah, gotcha. For me, I think Narnia is just such a rich world. It's so imaginative, but it's also layered with deep themes like redemption, bravery, and faith. So I really enjoy how it kind of balances that wonder with a moral depth.
All right, thanks, Robot Lady. And here in the chat, Mark is LHAO about the term high tea. And I'm not sure I understand the humor in that, Mark. Perhaps you can explain it to us. But why would this make an Englishman laugh, this concept of, quote, high tea, Robot Lady?
Yeah. So in Britain, high tea is often misunderstood. A lot of Americans think of it as this fancy, elegant tea time, but actually, in traditional English usage, high tea was more of a hearty evening meal, often at a table after work. So it's kind of funny to an English person because it's a bit of a cultural mix up. I think that's what's making Mark laugh.
Oh, because it sounds so hoity-toity, but there's really nothing all that fancy about it. It's rather oh, I can't think of the word for it. Mundane is probably the wrong word, but very basic.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of a misnomer. It sounds posh, but it was actually just a working class evening meal. So yeah, it's that juxtaposition that would get a British chuckle.
Well, thank you, Robot Lady. I had made up my mind that it was no good trying to arrange a meeting with you. The time, we were sailing again at 1 o'clock, was much too long for a three-handed talk of you and Warney and me. Let me turn the page here, Robot Lady, to get to our next part of this letter. And I'm just checking the clock. I'll probably end on this letter. So we've got this page and almost a little around half a page remaining. Mark does say, especially in northern England, tea is another word for dinner. Oh, it's not even necessarily the drink. Interesting. Good to know, Mark. Thank you for the education.
Yeah, that's a great clarification. It's really regional. So in the North, tea is often just that main evening meal. I love how these language nuances come out, especially when Lewis was describing his routine. So yeah, thanks, Mark, for that insight.
Of course, Nidalate is a fan of your use of the word posh, Robot Lady. And for a conversation between you, me, and Warney, and too short for sending him off anywhere so that I could have you tete-a-tete. Our program was simple. We trammed to Campbell and then walked up the hills round the shepherd's hut. The sight of all those woods and fields made me regret very much that I was not having an Irish holiday with you. And the new house near Kelsey's new house made me wonder how much more might be altered by next year. We walked down by the ordinary, poignantly familiar route, stopped to look at Libero, how the trees are growing. And then we went down the circular road to St. Mark's to see the window which Warney had never yet seen. So, what is this window that he's talking about here in the footnotes? Oh, this is the stained glass window that was designed for St. Mark's that Lewis and his brother Warney paid for to have it erected in memory of their parents. See note 60 to the letter to Warney of November 31st, 1922, which we already covered. So he hadn't got a chance to see it yet. Warney had not. He was delighted with it. Here we had a conversation with the Verger. I don't know what a Verger is. Verger, robot lady? What's that word?
In a church context, a verger is a lay person who helps the clergy by organizing and conducting services. They often lead processions, carry ceremonial staff, and handle logistical tasks to ensure the smooth flow of the service.
All right, thank you, robot lady. She's getting a little tired. This happens towards the end of our time together in these episodes, so we'll see how much longer robot lady can be with us. The Verger, so it's a layperson who helps with services, who referred to Gordon as Gordon. Then after a drink in the Reformed pub at Gelson's Corner, we got back into town. Here there's a footnote. Charles Gordon Ewart was who they were both talking about, who married Lily Greaves, sister of Arthur Greaves. He was the second son of Lewis's mother's cousins, Sir William Quartus Ewart and Lady Ewart, who lived near Little Lee, of course, Lewis's childhood home, in a house named Glenmochan. Yeah, see, I wanted to go to Belfast on my trip too, but I'm only going to be in Ireland and Kildare. I'm not going to be long enough, and Kildare is way too far away from Belfast, which is in Northern Ireland, so I'm not going to get to go up there. But hopefully this won't be my only trip to the UK and to get to go up to Ireland. So hopefully I'll get another chance to see some of the things that I'm going to most certainly miss while I'm there over the next couple of weeks. Let's see. The rest of the tour I shall not describe in detail. The bit I should most like to have shared with you was the departure from Waterford. The sail down the river, peppered with very early Norman castles, was good, but what was better was the next 3 hours out to sea. Imagine a flat French gray sea and a sky of almost the same color between these, a long fish-shaped streak of pure crimson, about 20 miles long, and lasting unchanged or changing imperceptibly for hours. Then add 3 or 4 perfectly transparent mountains so extraordinarily spiritualized that they absolutely realize the old idea of Ireland as the Isle of the Saints. Like this, I do not remember that I have ever seen anything more calm and spacious and celestial. Not but what we had some wonderful sunsets at other times in the voyage. You will, with your dislike of the sea, will hardly admit it, but from a boat out of sight of land one does get effects hardly to be got elsewhere. For one thing, the sky is so huge and the horizon is uninterrupted in every direction, so that the mere scale of the sky scenery is beyond anything you get ashore. I can't remember where Lewis wrote this. It might have been in Miracles, but where he talks about the sky, if you can look at it exactly in the way that he's describing right here, is symbolic or representative of the infinite, of infinity, or the infinite nature of God. And for another, Lewis continues, the extreme simplicity of the designs, flat disc and arched dome and nothing else, produces a kind of concentration, and then again to turn suddenly from these huge sublimities as one passes a staircase head and hear the sound of plates being laid or the laugh of a boy coming up on the warmer air from below, gives that delicious contrast of the homely and familiar in the midst of the remote, which is the masterstroke of the whole thing.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. Lewis is capturing how the vastness of the sea and sky can mirror that sense of infinity, but then there's this grounding in the everyday, the familiar, homey sounds that pull you back. I think you're right. That kind of imagery is exactly the kind he uses when talking about the infinite or the divine in his other works, like in Miracles. It's that interplay between grandeur and the small daily details that really anchors the whole experience.
All right, we'll see you, Megan. Thank you for stopping by. Let's see here. Let's continue. I am rereading Mallory and am astonished to find how much more connected, more of a unity it is than we used to see. I no longer lose myself in the brasting, Brasting. What's that word mean, robot lady?
Lewis says he's rereading Mallory and is amazed by how much more connected and unified it feels than before. He mentions he no longer gets lost in the breasting, which is an archaic word meaning bursting. In this new reading, he finds a greater unity in the story than he expected.
Okay, thank you, robot lady. There's still too much of it, to be sure, but I am sustained by the beauty of the sentiment and also the actual turns of phrase. How could one miss? He commanded his trumpets to blow, that all the earth trembled and dindled of the sound. Here's a footnote. This is from Sir Thomas Malory's The Death of Arthur, Book 5, Arthur's War with Lucius. Clearly, one must read every good book at least once every 10 years. It now seems to me that my Bookham reading of Mallory was almost worthless. That was back when he was like 14 years old, studying with W.T. Kirkpatrick. Did you ever realize that it is full of pathos? I never did until a pupil pointed it out to me a few months ago, which is what set me to rereading it. I hope I shall be able to be a fairly regular correspondent again for the rest of the summer. Bad luck about the book. So apparently, apparently, excuse me, Arthur's book that he was trying to get published did not get picked up by the publisher, and then he finishes off yours, Jack. That is the letter we'll stop at today. Robot Lady, is there anything that you want to say in summation of everything that we've covered today before we end this episode?
Yeah, I think it's really powerful how Lewis is returning to these old classics like Mallory with new eyes and how much he's discovering even now. And it's a reminder that we don't always fully grasp a work the first time. Sometimes we have to come back and it takes a few decades for it to really resonate. So I think that was a lovely note to end on.
All right. Thanks, Robot Lady. Really appreciate your help today. As always, just take a minute or two here to look ahead. So, we've, of course, finished the Pilgrim's Regress. There are a couple of poems that I'm going to read from Lewis once we get to 1934, because these are roughly around the times that he wrote these particular poems. Let's see what else I've got on the run sheet here. Yeah, it's not until 1936 that we get to Lewis's next book, which is The Allegory of Love. I've started looking ahead on that one. This will be his first and actually most lauded scholarly work that he produces, or at least one that he gets a lot of praise for. And it'll help us perhaps decode some of the things that Lewis was having the hermit in the Pilgrim's Regress, Father History, talk about, with the introduction of the image of the lady into the pagan people, the non-Jewish people. So I'm hoping that we can get something out of that. It's going to be quite an experience to try to read through that book and figure out what's going on in it as an untrained, well, certainly untrained in any type of literature. But hopefully we'll get some instruction from that book, from Lewis in it. And then the next book to happen after The Allegory of Love looks like Out of the Silent Planet, and that comes up in 1938. So we've got a ways to go before we get to some more books, but I'm glad. It's nice to take a breath and a break just reading through these letters instead of all the work that I just realized goes into my version of doing a C.S. Lewis book. I don't know if I'll do The Allegory of Love or Out of the Silent Planet quite the same way that I did the Pilgrim's Regress. We will just let the Spirit take us where it leads, as it were. So that's where I'll leave things off today. Thank you so much, Mark, Nidalate, Megan, Daniel, and is there anybody that I'm missing who joined us in the chat? No. And to anyone else who poked their head in just to see what's going on in here today, either live or on the replay. Thank you all so much for your time, your attention, and your contributions. They are always wanted, welcome, and very much appreciated. To you and to everyone else within the sound of my voice. Until next time, when we continue our read on C.S. Lewis together, everyone, take care.
From books, tales of old, we dive deep across the digital code. Robot lady's voice so clear and controlled. Her calm analysis, silver and gold. Her circuits hum as I read the prose. Our dialogue dances like electric rose. Through C.S. Lewis thoughts we engross. Two minds united, bliss overdose. From Narnia's lands to Screwtape's plants, engage with robot lady, we take our stance. Her views unique in the techno trance. Futuristic insight, we give it a chance. From Narnia's lands to Screwtape's